In the summer of 2023, a team of Russian paleontologists working a remote stretch of Siberian permafrost spotted something dark through the frozen mud. They were there for mammoth tusks. What they found stopped the dig entirely. At first, it looked like fur, dense, golden brown, with faint, darker striping. Not a wolf, not a fox, and not human. As the team carefully melted back the surrounding ice, the full shape emerged. A juvenile cave lion, intact from nose to paw pads, with the whiskers still attached. Radiocarbon dating from multiple tissue samples, fur, muscle, and bone, returned the same result across every lab that tested it. 28,000 years old. Ötzi the Iceman, found in the Alps in 1991 and celebrated ever since as the oldest preserved body ever recovered, is roughly 5,300 years old. The cave lion cub is more than 5 times older. For decades, scientists assumed frozen preservation had a practical ceiling. This specimen broke it. To understand why this find matters, it helps to understand what scientists actually knew about cave lions before this moment, and how little that turned out to be. Cave lion bones have been pulled from the sites across Europe and Asia for more than a century. The species, known by the scientific name Panthera spelaea, was well documented in the fossil record. Adults were enormous, larger than any lion alive today, with estimates placing mature males at close to 700 pounds. They ranged across a vast territory, hunting Ice Age horses, bison, and reindeer. Ancient humans painted them on cave walls in France and Spain, sometimes in scenes that appear to show hunts, the lions moving with a muscular, low profile, unlike anything in the modern animal world. But no one had ever seen one. Not really. The bones gave a skeleton. The cave art gave impressions. Every reconstruction of cave lion appearance, the fur color, the markings, the build of the face, was an educated guess built on comparisons to modern lions and context from the paintings. That gap existed for a straightforward reason. Frozen preservation of soft tissue requires a very specific set of conditions that almost never occur together. The body must freeze rapidly after death, before decomposition has time to take hold. The ground around it must remain continuously frozen for the entire period of burial, not thaw and refreeze, which causes ice crystals to rupture cell walls and destroy tissue. And the burial environment must be chemically stable enough that the organic material does not break down through other processes. Siberian permafrost meets all 3 conditions. Winter temperatures in the Kolyma River region of northeastern Siberia drop to -50 degrees Fahrenheit. The ground has been frozen continuously for tens of thousands of years. In those conditions, bacterial activity stops, decomposition halts. And if a body is buried quickly by sediment, it can remain in what amounts to a biological pause for an almost incomprehensible length of time. The cave lion cub had been in that pause since the Ice Age. Examination of the teeth and bone development placed the animal's age at roughly 1 to 2 months at the time of death. It still had its milk teeth. At that age, it would have weighed somewhere around 30 pounds, roughly the size of a large domestic cat, though one that would have grown into an apex predator. There were no signs of injury on the carcass, no evidence of predation or trauma. The most likely explanation is that the cub became separated from its mother, wandered too far from the den, and died of exposure. The cold that killed it is also what preserved it. Since then, the Siberian permafrost has been producing discoveries at a pace that would have seemed impossible 20 years ago. A foal from 42,000 years ago was recovered in 2018 with liquid blood still present in its veins. The following year brought a wolf head, 40,000 years old, with brain tissue intact. In 2020, a woolly rhinoceros calf, estimated at 20,000 years in age, was pulled from a riverbank. The cave lion cub fits into a pattern, a frozen archive of Ice Age life that is only now becoming accessible, largely because climate change is accelerating permafrost thaw, and erosion is cutting into sediment that has been undisturbed for millennia. The DNA recovered from the cub's tissues added a layer of information the bones alone could never provide. Researchers sequenced the full genome and found that cave lions diverged from modern African lions approximately 500,000 years ago. Enough separation to classify them as a genuinely distinct species rather than a cold-adapted subspecies of the lion we know today. The genetic data also revealed something darker. The cave lion population carried signs of low genetic diversity, a pattern that emerges when a species has been small in number and relatively isolated for long enough that inbreeding becomes unavoidable. That fragility matters for understanding what eventually happened to them. Cave lions survived the harshest climate phases of the Ice Age. They endured alongside mammoths, woolly rhinoceros, and giant cave bears for tens of thousands of years. But when the climate shifted rapidly at the end of the Pleistocene, around 12,000 years ago, the prey base they depended on collapsed. A species with low genetic diversity has limited capacity to adapt to fast-moving change. Cave lions went extinct, and only their DNA and a handful of frozen specimens remain. The world the cub lived in bears almost no resemblance to northeastern Siberia today. The region was part of a vast, cold grassland system called the Mammoth Steppe, a landscape that supported extraordinarily dense populations of large herbivores, woolly mammoths, giant bison, woolly rhinoceros, and Ice Age horses grazing across tough grasses that grew in the dry, cold conditions. Predators structured their lives around those herds. Cave lions, cave hyenas, and wolves all competed across the same territory. Humans were there too. Archaeological evidence places people in Siberia at least 30,000 years ago, hunting the same species the cave lions depended on. The cave art from Western Europe makes the relationship between humans and cave lions explicit. Some paintings appear to show lions that have been struck with spears. These were not background animals. They were competitors in a landscape where competition meant life and death. The cub that was found died before any of that. It never hunted. It never encountered a mammoth. It died in its first 2 months, before the Ice Age world had a chance to test it. Some researchers have raised legitimate questions about the find. Contamination is always a concern with ancient tissue samples. The possibility that modern biological material mixed with ancient specimens during handling or extraction. Adrian Lister of the Natural History Museum in London, who has spent decades studying cave lion extinction chronology, has written extensively on the methodological challenges of working with Pleistocene remains. These are not trivial objections. Ancient DNA work is technically demanding, and the history of the field includes high-profile cases where contamination produced misleading results. In this case, multiple independent labs tested samples from different tissue types and returned consistent dates. The preservation context, continuous permafrost burial with no evidence of disturbance, reduces the contamination risk significantly. The genome sequence itself carries the chemical damage signatures that accumulate in DNA over tens of thousands of years, a pattern that modern contamination does not produce. The evidence holds. What the cave lion cub changes, most concretely, is the visual record. The fur is a warm golden brown with faint, darker striping, closer in patterning to a young modern lion than to the paler reconstructions that appeared in textbooks for decades. The paw pads are intact. The facial structure, visible in detail for the first time, confirms the broad-headed, heavy-jawed profile suggested by skeletal analysis, while adding proportions no fossil could provide. For every artist who painted cave lions across the past century based on inference, the actual animal looks like a correction. More will come. Every summer, permafrost thaw and river erosion expose new material. Local communities in Siberia, people who have been searching riverbanks for mammoth ivory as a livelihood for generations, increasingly alert scientists when they encounter specimens beyond tusks. That informal network has become a significant source of discoveries. The partnership is accelerating the rate at which Ice Age life is re-entering the scientific record. Otzi remains one of the most important finds in human prehistory. The information locked in his tissues, his genome, his gut microbiome, his last meal, the copper axe beside him, has rewritten chapters of European prehistory. None of that diminishes. But the framework that made him exceptional, the idea that 5,000 years of frozen preservation was near the outer limit of what nature could sustain, no longer holds. The cave lion cub spent 28,000 years in the dark under northeastern Siberia. The whiskers are still there. The fur is still there. The cells that built this animal are still readable. The permafrost is melting faster than at any point in recorded history. What that means for the planet is a conversation happening in climate science right now. But it also means the archive is opening. Whatever else is buried in that ice, and based on the pace of recent discovery, there is a great deal, is going to surface on its own timeline, not ours. The question is not whether more will be found. The question is what else from that lost world has been waiting, frozen and intact, for the moment the ground finally gives it back.